Empire.
Welcome back to All's Caps, I guess a victory edition here. I'm AP hockey writer Stephen Wino with former Capitals defenseman Karl Alsner, sitting here at Capitals practice facility. They're on the road, but a huge win against the Penguins on Sunday. Karl, what are your impressions? I know it's one game. I know the Penguins had all these COVID issues and Sidney Crosby coming back, but what do you take out of a kind of an emotional, fun win like that?
Yeah, well, it doesn't really matter, where any of these teams are in the standings. It's always a big game. One team could be in first, one in last. It doesn't matter. It's always a statement game because you always play good against some of your best competition, the ones you love to beat. So that was huge. I was a last minute decision not to go to that game, and I'm kicking myself. Would have been nice to see that in person. But yeah, it was awesome, and it just kind of caps off a really nice road trip and sequence of games for the team. So yeah, I was probably, if I was a player, I'd probably be the most nervous for that game, just because it's the Penguins. It's always a bit of a nerve-wracking game, but it ended up being, looked like on paper maybe the easiest game. And so, yeah, it was kind of interesting how it turned out.
Yeah, and so I was fortunate enough. I was at the football game at FedEx Field, so I got to see the football team beat Tom Brady and then sit in traffic and get there just in time for the anthems. Capitals beat the Penguins. It was a ridiculous day in Washington sports.
No kidding. I heard a couple people say that they were going to doublehead that.
Ted Leonsis also did the double.
There you go. Yeah, you might as well. When you have an opportunity to go to a couple sporting events and make it work, then that's sweet. The football team games are always fun, but I always find it so crazy to get out of there after.
It's a pain in the ass to get out of there.
I just wish that there was another way to get to and from. We went a couple times with some of the guys, and we would get, actually one time we went in a school bus. It was like a revamped school bus turned into like a limo. It was hilarious. It was tons of fun. It was probably the best memory I had at a football team game. But yeah, it's when you can do a doubleheader like that's the best sports day right there.
Was it like a party bus? Like,
it was essentially a party bus. It was sweet. We stopped off at, because we used to go, so Capitol Grill down right by the rink was like our stomping ground. We go there after every single game, and so we always loved getting the calamari. So we all got on this party bus and went down to the Capitol Grill, got a big platter of calamari, and then headed down to the stadium and watched the game. And I remember we were pretty banged up. Like it was, we had back in those days, we had it didn't really matter if there was a game the next day or what. Like the guys kind of got banged up, and we had a nice day off and enjoyed it. It was a good memory, and I don't even remember what happened in the game, but either way, it was still a blast.
I think being at FedEx, handling FedEx, you need a little bit of that. Fortunately, I'm paid to be there, yes. And I've got to work. But just to handle the atmosphere there is not great. It's not in a great location. That's what's great about Capital One Arena. You have things around there that is not in the middle of nowhere, like the old Cap Center used to be.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'm just so now that I've been able to see some games in person and see all the stuff that's going around, it's insane. Like there's so many options. Like to have fun before the game, have fun after the game. I want to go and watch a Ravens game because I've heard tons about the Ravens games being kind of. A little
that's
different
a cool stadium.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. I'm more. There's some sports I think that are better on TV and some that are better in person. Hockey is definitely better in person, I think, and
for sure.
For me, football is better on TV. So I like to kind of go in between games every now and then. Except I do hate when you want to see a replay. Like if you're watching the Red Zone, you want to see a replay and then all of a sudden it's gone. I'm just like, come on. Show me a little more.
That's the only problem. I as someone who was in the arena the other night, that was a cool atmosphere. It was just there were a handful of Penguins fans. One Penguins fan who was actually got led away in handcuffs as we were kind of going down late in the game with his Capitals fan wife or girlfriend with him. So some trouble. For some people found some trouble. Sidney Crosby did not find trouble. Threw Martin Farivari into the boards. Had a frustrating sort of game for Sidney Crosby. Were you surprised there wasn't something more for Sidney Crosby for that?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, it's tough. He's not a repeat offender by any means. He's not a guy that's done anything overly dirty. So I think the refs give him a little bit of leeway in that sense. But it was still kind of a still a kind of an aggressive play. Like you damn well know what you're doing in that situation, giving a guy a little extra ride there. So that was surprising to me. But what I was happy was to see him in the box, though. You almost never see that guy in the box, and you always think that he's going to get one or he's not going to get away with it this time, and next thing you know, he's gotten away with it. So, and that's just listening to the guys talking about it today, that how many penalties he draws versus some of these other guys. It's so interesting to see what the difference is. You'd think that, I don't know, I guess you'd think like a guy like McDavid would draw more penalties, and he doesn't, but Sid seems to draw a ton, so I don't always understand how it works.
Did you ever draw a penalty on Sid?
So I don't know that I can't remember exactly if I ever did, but I know one time in particular where we were battling pretty hard it was kind of behind the net, and yeah, we're going at it, and he all of a sudden, like, I'm trying to dig the puck away, and then he does what a lot of guys do, is puts his hands on the back of your head, like kind of like pushes your head down, almost a bit of a headlock thing. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm getting him, finally going to get him. He's getting one here. He kind of pulled my helmet off, the whistle went, whatever, and then all of a sudden the ref comes to take me to the box. And I remember saying to him, I'm like, I finally got you to take a penalty. And he's like, what are you talking about? And because the ref came to pick me out. And I said, what did I just get the penalty for? He clearly saw what happened. He says, you got it for holding. And I'm holding. I'm like, my face was in the ice. My helmet was off. How did I get the holding penalty? And he was laughing as I was going to the box. I'm just like, what do I got to do to get this guy to take a penalty? It seems like it's impossible. So I don't know for sure, but I know I definitely got hooped on that one.
Yeah, and that's one of the problems with Connor McDavid, where he was talking about in the playoffs last year, was he didn't draw a single penalty. So if you don't call the rules in the playoffs like you call it in the regular season, how do you let guys like that actually do their thing?
Yeah, exactly. There's so much talk about protecting the stars and this and that, and you would just assume that there's going to be more, but at the same time, the refs don't want to make it seem like there's any special treatment, but the guy could do even more than what he is doing.
He'd be a 200-point player
exactly.
instead.
Yeah, you can't put a stick on a guy that's going that fast. It's I'm sure there's been, if you go back and watch some of the games, there's probably tons of trippings and holdings. I know I've held his stick a bunch of times, and it's just depending on if the refs see it, I guess, and maybe he's not quite selling it the way that some other guys would do. So I'm not sure, but the more that guy can score and put up assists, the better it is for the league. And
with Sidney Crosby in the box, Tom Wilson scored a power play goal, which I think for everybody who's not a Capitals fan made their head explode.
Yeah, Whip does that to people, but I've said this a couple times that for the team to have a little bit more success, we need to have some secondary scoring, and Tom's been doing that lately. He's been lighting the lamp. I think he's been contributing a lot more too. So yeah, and I love to see that, and all the way up and down the lineup, they're getting a little bit more. Hathaway's been doing a job too. And
I was just going to ask you about Garnet Hathaway. Is all of a sudden a goal scorer?
All of a sudden a goal scorer. You're feeling it on the fourth line there, and I always say fourth line, but I don't really consider them a fourth line. But you start feeling it a little bit, and then the good times start rolling. Next thing you know, you got a little point streak going on there. So I'm happy to see those guys contribute, and like I said, the team is going to need that from them to be a little more successul.
And Zach Fucale, we brought him up last week. You got a chance to play with him a little bit in Montreal in camp and all that. I think we're going to see him again. I have just of the opinion that this is a guy who they can't carry three goalies. No goalies like having two nets and three guys around. But what did you make of Zach Fucale's shutout, and will he be back?
Yeah, well, I think if we've learned anything from just the last couple of years is that there's going to be injuries with the two right now, Vanacek and Samsonov. There's going to be growing pains as well, and so you will see Zach come in, and especially when you come in your first game and have a shutout. And now guys usually play just a little bit harder when they know it's somebody's first game or some sort of milestone, whatever it may be, and so that definitely helped. But yeah, why wouldn't you give him a couple more? If a guy gets a shutout, you don't send him back and say, yeah, we'll never see you again. We want to see what else we got here, and they're in the business of winning. So if he's going to give him a good chance, or the other guys are struggling at some point, why not let him play some more hockey?
Yeah, and this was a guy who won World Junior Gold for Canada, kind of a late bloomer, but goalies develop later. We've seen this with Devin Dubnyk. We've seen this with Jordan Binnington. That can happen with goalies at 24, 25, 26 years old, turn into NHL guys.
Absolutely. You have to be so strong mentally to be a goalie and come in when you're young and find a way to figure it out. Like, it does not happen very often.
That's what makes Braden Holtby actually really impressive, because he was so young when he came into the league.
Exactly. And the guys that have turned into absolute studs, like a Carey Price and a Marc-Andre Fleury, like, these guys are studs that were able to do it. And it's tough to do that. So, yeah, it takes some time to develop and to get a little bit of a thicker skin, because it's like the star player. If things are going good, it's great for everybody. If it's not, then you're getting a finger pointed at you almost right away. So it's fine. I think that you might as well give him some opportunity when it makes sense to give him opportunity, and I think you feel kind of rest easier knowing that you do have him back there in case you need him.
Sure, and for now, though, Ilya Samsonov, Vitek Vanacek in goal for the Capitals. After this, we're going to talk about Nick Dowd and his 3-year extension and what the Capitals' center depth might look like in the coming year. Welcome back to All's Caps. I'm AP hockey writer Steve Wino with former Capitals defenseman Karl Alzner. Congratulations to Nick Dowd. $3.9 million 3-year extension with the Capitals. Career year for goals for Nick Dowd last year. Just a solid guy, right? This is a kind of player that at a $1.3 million cap hit fits perfectly on this team.
Absolutely. And just talk about being a solid guy. So I didn't play with Nick when I was here. Came in right after, and I met him one time at Holtz's house when we came back to visit at the end of the season. Talked to him for, I don't know, an hour and a half, and you can just tell from a quick conversation with somebody sometimes that they're just great people, and him and his wife seem like great people, and I know that it's one of the things that the Capitals love is bringing in good people, someone that's going to be not only good on the ice, but good off the ice and good in the community. And when you have somebody like that, it reminds me of a Jay Beagle, someone that your city really, really benefits from having. And so, when you have somebody like that, you want to hold on to them at a contract that is, a team you're happy with. He's probably very happy. The team is probably very happy. I remember, it's funny bringing up Beegs again, is that I remember Beegs told me one time on the plane that if the Caps would offer him a 10-year deal at $500,000, which at the time was the minimum, he said he would sign it in a heartbeat. Those guys are guys that want to have security, because that fourth line role, like teams will bring in, a guy who's just been drafted in the first round, second round, and stick him on the fourth line just to let them develop. And then guys that have been in the league already for 5-10 years that have played that role get pushed out. And so you want security at that point. So I remember Beeg said that, and I remember laughing at him when he signed his ticket in Vancouver, because it's amazing how things change when you just feel a little bit more comfortable. So I'm really happy for him. That once again, fourth line, whatever you want to call them, has had so much success too that you don't want to break them up. If you can manage to find a way to keep them and have them all be happy and feel like they're getting something, whether it's monetary value or time on ice, whatever it is,
and security too. Yeah,
exactly, absolutely. Keep those guys together. I think there's very few fourth lines in the league that players will be like, oh yeah, that's the fourth line for Pittsburgh or for Philadelphia. There's a couple teams where you do know that fourth line.
Vegas had this for a while.
Exactly. Vegas had it. The Islanders have had it for years. I think Washington has it in that line. So there's some teams that it's like, there's no breakout there. And I think that line, especially with Nick, really, really solidifies that.
Well, I'm sure we'll talk more about your Montreal stuff next week when the Canadiens come to town. But one thing Nick Dowd said about this was he didn't trust free agency. He didn't want to go into free agency. I'm sure that was a thing for you and a thing for Jay Beagle and these guys, is just the security versus taking the risk. Because if you're Nick Dowd and you're 32 years old at that point, you don't know what's out there in free agency next year with a flat cap.
Yeah, that's a smart guy right there to take that into consideration. I'm sure a bit of a family decision as well.
Yeah, his family loves it here. Yeah.
Exactly. When you feel comfortable somewhere, it doesn't matter. It almost doesn't matter who you are. You stay where is good for you and where you're enjoying yourself. And if maybe a team that is a major cup contender comes out of nowhere and says, hey, like, we want you in a crazy contract, that could change your mind, I guess. But at the same time, like, the grass is not always greener. The Matt Hendricks special, he told me, and I could tell you easily 5 players that I played with that went somewhere that had said those exact words after, that they made a mistake leaving Washington, and you don't realize how good it is until you're gone. So, like I said, smart guy for understanding that and sticking with what he's got here.
Yeah, and then the question now is what does this mean for the Capitals moving forward? Nick Dowd under contract for 3 more years. Lars Eller is up after next year, and you've got Hendricks Lapierre around. You've got Connor McMichael around. Does this mean, is this Lars Eller's first step out the door for this team?
Right. So this is the architect of the team, what they see coming up down the road and how they want to play that, because Lars obviously was a major key for this team when they won. He was he was that third line center that they've been waiting for years. You know, I experienced it when I was here. We needed a third line center that could really be a big force and shut down and all that stuff. And then you get Lars, and unfortunately, you know, especially when cap comes into play and age comes into play, and you're trying to figure out a way to make it all work. And so, you know, however Mac wants to play that with, does he give a young guy more responsibility and in a tough role that doesn't always get enough credit for? You know, you don't really want to have to throw Kuzi up against you know, another team's top line. You'd like somebody to grind another top line. You know, you want a little bit more space for your guys. So it's going to be a tough call. But if I feel like with Lars, and you know, it's if he doesn't really produce consistently, and with some of the injury trouble that he's had too, it's, you know, you might consider going another direction.
They may not have a choice.
They may not have a choice.
The cap's not going to go up all that much. Lars Eller's probably going to get a raise somewhere, even at his age.
Right.
And you do have these kids coming up who, in theory, are NHL centers.
Right. But you know what? And go back to what you said about Nick. I know Lars loves it here, and so that's another thing too. Maybe he's one of those guys that just says, you know, give me an offer and
hometown discount sort of situation.
Yeah, you never know, and that's part of it. I know he's got a young daughter, so it's you don't really want to move around too much when your kids are getting to a certain age. So there's something that happens there. But you know what? You also want to see what the young guys can do and where you can slot them in and give them a little bit more responsibility. And maybe Mac has a plan.
I remember back in kind of your younger days, it was always this organization couldn't find the second line center. It was always Mike Ribeiro, and it was Shane Morrison, and just this entire list of people. And now it's when Nick Backstrom gets back, easy. Kuznetsov, Backstrom, Eller, Dowd. Like, the depth down the middle is what helped this team win a championship and has them still as cup contenders now.
Yeah, no, it's you're definitely right. There's I don't know. It's just a tough call because it's such an important role that you want to make sure you make the right decision. You don't want to lose a guy that you know can do it too. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see what they decide to do. But yeah, having that second line, Brooks Lake too, who would fill in too. So it's tough to find that role, and that's why you know, big, skilled, but also good at checking centermen are a hot commodity.
Hard to find.
Very hard to find.
But those guys, you could, in theory, talk me into Backstrom, Kuznetsov, Eller, Dowd for the next several years and have Connor McMichael play second line left wing, right? Like, couldn't you have McMichael and LaPierre eventually be wingers until you need them to play in the middle? You could,
yeah, but you also know that the players are, you know, they're specialists at a position, and it's tough sometimes to be out of that. Like, you're so used to, like, I know it as a defenseman, when you come out of the penalty box and all of a sudden you're a winger and then you have play on all sides of you, that messes you up, you know? Like, as much as we all know the game, it messes you up when you're not in your position. And so to go from a centerman who is going, you know, low man in the D zone to low man or high guy, whatever it is, in the offensive zone, and now you're just a winger and you're standing on the wall, everything changes. And you're not necessarily going to play as good as you would if you're a centerman. So it depends. If you want to do that, maybe you can try and work them in every now and then when somebody's hurt or for a game here and there. It's just tough because you don't want to completely mess with someone's development.
One thing with Hendricks, LaPierre, and maybe McMichael too, is just building up that kind of strength as 18, 19-year-old. That wasn't your problem, but as a player, how hard is that when you're starting going from junior to the pros to, like, be strong enough to play in the NHL?
Yeah, so it's funny that you say that. So like we mentioned with Steve-O, we're skating a little bit now, and I'm skating with these kids that are 17, 18, 19 years old, and one of them said after we got off the ice, he's like, I didn't really realize like how hard it is to battle with someone in the corner, you know, and that's what it is. That was, you know, one of the things that I really loved. I loved a good battle in the corner, and as a young, thin, or just maybe not completely filled out player in this league, it's hard to win those battles, and they're very, very important battles to win, especially in the D zone and for puck possession in the offensive zone. So that's something that comes with you know, a little bit more knowledge. You don't always necessarily have to be the biggest in that battle, but just a little bit more knowledge on how to sometimes come away with those pucks and being on the right side of the puck too, because you get on the wrong side for a second and it's odd man. So it's tough. It's something that it's just going to come with development, and you don't really want to hurt someone's development by taking them out of position.
It's one of those things that Adam Oates always said is a center is the only guy who plays in all four corners of the rink. Mm-hmm. When you're playing like as a kid, like did you ever try out forward? Like was it like did you play it and realize nope, this is not my position?
Well, everybody starts out where they're just trying to race to the center dot to take the face off. That's what everyone wants to do is be that centerman and take a face off. And then eventually, they start moving you around a little bit, and then depending on what kids seem to like more or your size. Like for me, it was my size. I was one of the bigger guys, so they put me on the back end, which, I guess
it worked out for you.
Yeah, you needed to be big to be a D-man back then, I guess, and so that's how it works. And then you still want to try it. I know a lot of guys that'll play forward in the off season. Like when I was in Kelowna, I'd always play forward. We had too many Ds, so I'd always be a forward and work on things, because next thing you know, you're a defenseman, then you get yourself into a spot where you're coming across the blue line with the puck offensively, and you're almost never in that role. Like you don't practice that in practice. It's very rare that you actually get to do that 5-on-5 in practice. So you just don't get enough reps at it. So yeah, it's just you need to get some work at all different spots to appreciate all the different positions, but it's also hard to spend too much time at that and then lose what you do have for years. Like if you have a guy that's played defense and then goes to play offense, plays forward, you love those guys because they understand what we're going through, and vice versa. Look at Bufflin, like he was,
and Brent Burns has done this.
Brent Burns has done this, yeah. So you get guys that do it and are very, very successful at it, but it's so hard to make that change while you're in the pros, the NHL, American League, whatever it is. That's more of a junior move, unless you're a freak like Bufflin was or Brent Burns.
You brought up Brooks. Like, remember the game he played defense?
Yeah. He was one of the rare guys that could pivot at speed from forward to backwards. Like, you'd be surprised. Like, these guys, everybody here plays in the NHL, but not everybody can pivot fast forward to backwards. It's like, if you think about it as a forward in practice, if you come to watch a practice ever, see how many times a forward skates backwards in practice. Sometimes they would do it probably less than 50 times in an entire year. And it's hard to learn that skill and bring it back, and to do it when you have possibly have a McDavid coming at you, or maybe it's not a McDavid, but it's still someone with NHL speed coming at you. It's very tough to do.
Absolutely. We will be back next segment talking Capitals road trips, with Capitals going out on the road: Anaheim, LA, San Jose, and Seattle. We'll be right back. Welcome back to All's Caps with former Capitals defenseman Karl Alsner. I'm AP hockey writer Steve Wino. Capitals on the West Coast road trip at Anaheim, at LA, at San Jose, at Seattle. You know this trip, other than the Seattle part, you're very familiar with this road trip. What is it like? Because sometimes, like when these teams were good, this was a pain in the ass road trip for teams.
Oh God, yeah. I remember when I don't remember exactly which year it was, but I don't think we had won, or the Capitals had won in San Jose in like 15 years. It dated back to 93 or something like that. And then the game that we did win, I think it was one of the referees got in the way, and Beegs got like a partial breakaway and scored, and then we had the weirdest bounce on another goal that went in, and I think we won in overtime to break the streak. And I remember we were just losing it with excitement. It was one of the best things ever. And for these teams have been. They've had some really good teams over the years. Obviously LA when they did win. San Jose was solid for a long time, and Anaheim had unreal players. It was just such a hard road trip, and then going back out west. Like if you think about it, you get 1 day usually in between your travel day. Well, so you have your travel day, and then you play the next day.
Yes.
A game starts at 7 p.m. That's 10 o'clock for you normally.
Yep. And your body clock.
Yeah, your body clock is completely messed up. So it's just a tough trip to go on. And then, not to mention, you're in California, and most of the time you've come from cold weather or colder weather, and you get to go and see the sunshine, and you're wearing shorts and flip-flops again, and it's just tough. It's a mental grind on you there, because it doesn't seem like you should be playing hockey, and now you got to play these great teams, and there's a couple of the teams are doing really well this year, so it's going to be pretty difficult.
We ask on your Karl Stupid Questions, what is your favorite drink on the plane? What was your drink waiting for you on a plane after a game? Let's say you're leaving the West Coast, and all of a sudden you're flying at Anaheim or LA, coming back east. What's your drink of choice after a road trip ends?
So as soon as you finish the game, there's always like a case or two of beers on the bus, and so I'd always have a beer on the bus. And then as soon as I get to the plane, then we usually crack open the red wine. For majority of guys, I think are into that, but it sometimes depends. It depends how you're feeling. But I'd say I'd say typically a red wine was it. When I was in Montreal, because it's hard to get wine in Canada, and the options in Montreal or in Quebec are especially limited because of has to have French on the bottle for them to sell it in the States.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's wild. So it's hard to get stuff. So anyways, I had a wine suitcase that fit 12 bottles. So everywhere we go, I just load up 12 bottles of wine, and then I usually have one or two in my backpack, and or somebody else would do that, and then we'd open up a bottle as soon as we get on the plane. So yeah, that was probably my drink of choice. It was always interesting to see some guys had whatever it was, a mixed drink or beer or Diet Coke. It just depended on the guy.
There was a story that somebody did recently that was like hockey players used to be beer drinkers and now are wine drinkers. I think that happened like during your career, right? Like where it went from like a lot of beer to wine.
Yeah, well, there's still a lot of beer drinkers around. But guys like to class it up. At least they think they're classing it up by getting to the red stuff. Yeah, exactly. So it's there's still a fair share of Coors Lights going around, but it's there's also a ton, like, I don't know, it's something about going to a restaurant where guys think it's cool to order up a bottle of wine and have that, and I don't know, I have no idea on like the calorie count and stuff like that, but
it's less. It's less for the wine.
Yeah, so maybe that's what's going on too. But yeah, that would be my drink of choice. And then when we were in California, my thing of choice to do would always be to golf, which is what I'm hoping these guys are going to do at some point on this trip when they have their couple days off, because that's one of the things that you do to break up the season when you're in a city. Well, I mean, it hasn't even been that cold here yet, but when the season's happening, you want to get away and just kind of get away from the game and do something like that. So that's one of the best things about the California trip, is you get to, I don't know, almost get away from the game and feel like you're not in hockey season.
Where in the San Jose area, Bay Area, like, do you remember a course out there that you play that's good?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's called like Citadel or something along those lines. We played the Stanford course actually one time. That's where I had my best ever round of golf, was at the Stanford course. I think I shot a 78 or 79, and I remember being so fired up because I birdied the first hole. And then right after we got off, Nick Backstrom hit a shot from the fairway and dunked it from like 155 yards out. And I'm just like, Jesus, like there goes our game right there. These guys are going to crush us. So I remember that being a really good time. But we played, actually, this was crazy. We played in San Jose. We were golfing, and we had some of the assistant coaches out there playing with us. It was just a heck of a time. And we're leaving, and me and Marcus Johansson were in a Uber on our way back, and you have to cross kind of like this secondary highway, I guess you could say, and there's no light, just a stop sign, and then the other guys are flying. And I remember thinking, like, I was looking out the window, and a lot of times you get on your phone and you're not really paying attention to what's going on, but for whatever reason I was just paying close attention, and this car was coming, and our Uber driver was not watching at all, and he started to go as this car was flying easily 70 mile an hour, and I remember just grabbing him on the shoulder and telling him to stop, and he hammered the brakes, and the car missed us by probably a foot. It was so crazy, and the guys were in the Uber behind us and saw it all happen too. So it's weird. I always have a strange memory of golfing in San Jose and then almost getting schmucked by a Uber driver. So it was crazy.
Not that we don't all worry about that for ourselves, the bad things happening, but like in my job, it's one of those things I lie awake at night of thinking like, well, if Alex Ovechkin gets into a car accident, like I've got to right, like you like, God forbid any of these things happen.
Yeah.
No, it came way too close to happening for you.
Absolutely, yeah. It was a weird one for me. It's the closest I've ever been to getting into a car accident. So yeah, let's not do that again.
Of those three arenas, Anaheim, LA, San Jose, do you have a favorite to play in of those three places?
I think my favorite to play in was probably LA, because
Staples Center.
Yeah, it has a cool atmosphere, and it's a Staples Center. I think it's that or in New York of being the busiest arena in the world, I think, right? There's like
MSG.
Yeah, there's like one day, maybe a year, where there's nothing going on, and you have so many different sports and concerts and all that stuff happening. So just kind of a cool atmosphere there. And the hardest one, though, to play in was San Jose. That Shark Tank is the real deal. The team always comes at you. It seems like things happen faster there. I don't know if it's just the way that the stands are built, but it seems like everything is kind of on top of you. So that was the hardest one, but the most fun, entertaining one of those three was definitely LA.
San Jose, they forgot to build a press box, so we were basically all the way up in the roof. You're basically where essentially the catwalk is the press box. There are a few arenas are like this, but it's a cool view from basically the top of the building. Yeah. That's a great place. They got the shark head down for the guys to skate out of. That's a fun building.
Yeah, it's a very fun building, and it's one of those places that also in San Jose that everybody seems to really, really love being in. It's fun to play there, and actually this is an interesting story about San Jose. It was my first ever trip out to San Jose, out to California to play any of those teams, and I had never played poker with the guys on a trip like that before. I played on these little ones to New York and Philly, whatever, and it was always I think it was always $100 buy-in too. So you get usually it was like $96 a day per diem is what we would get. And so essentially you were playing for your days of per diem. Right. And so I didn't realize that it went to a different price when you went on those longer trips. And so they asked me if I wanted to play, so I went and played, and I think I lost like 5 or 6 hands into the trip. And the guys told me it was $500. And I remember feeling sick to my stomach, like I just lost $500 in probably 20 minutes maybe. And so I remember being really upset about that. And then we landed. I didn't play again on the rest of that flight. And we landed there, and Eric Fair and Tom Pody asked me if I wanted to go to the casino with them. And so I was like, there's no chance I'm going to the casino. I just lost $500. I can't lose any more money. And Fairsy was like, hey, like just come and watch. Like it doesn't matter. There's not a whole lot else, not a whole lot to do right now. So I said, okay, I'll go. I watched them play for a little bit. Once again, Fairsy goes, hey, we're going to leave in 10 minutes. It's your last chance. Just play the minimum on something. So I'm like, fine. So I think I exchanged like $50 for chips. I was playing $5 hands on 3-card poker. And 3-card poker is like the easiest game you can play. You really don't even have to do anything. And on the second hand, I hit a royal flush on 3-card poker, turned that $5 bet into $1,200. And I was like so happy that I won my money back. But it's like the thing that always happens is you're like, why didn't I bet a little bit more? I was thinking to myself, imagine I just put $20, which is probably what I would have put on the hand, and I would have won what I won. So it was just funny that quick my luck changed and my attitude changed after I won a couple bucks.
Incredible. My favorite LA story was you guys had a trip out there. I think it was right after Bruce got the Ducks job. So you guys had Dale Hunter as coach, and I remember it was San Jose and then to Anaheim. You guys practiced in San Jose, so I flew down early to catch up with Bruce, like do the first interview with him since he got the Ducks job. And then I went out to Santa Anita and watched the horses during the afternoon.
Oh, yeah.
And I got a ticket to Lakers Grizzlies at Staples Center that night. That was one of my favorite sports days ever, of being able to do the double of Santa Anita for the horses and then go out to Staples Center for a Lakers game.
That's unbelievable. That's something to see is a basketball game there. And to watch the horses race too, like that.
Santa Anita's gorgeous because you got the San Gabriel Mountains in the background and it's scenic, it's beautiful. I think it was the same day Tim Tebow beat the Steelers in the playoffs when he was the Broncos quarterback.
No way.
I remember watching that at Santa Anita. I love telling stories. One Capitals hockey question before we go. On this road trip at LA, at San Jose, at Seattle, what do you need to see out of this team? What are you hoping to see? Because it's not a disastrous trip because these teams aren't out west. I know the Ducks are hot, but Kraken are struggling a little bit. The Kings are still on their way up. What do you want to see from the Capitals, who may be getting TJ Oshie back for that Seattle game on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, what you want to see is them play on the road the same way they just did when they were in playing Detroit and Columbus, and just keep that going, because road games are tough, and going all the way out there, like we said, with the time change and all that, it's difficult, and you don't want to. You don't want to just go in there and think you're going to beat these teams that maybe are underachieving right now, and actually go out there and put a good effort in. So, yeah, I just want to continue to see that production from everybody. I want to see Ovi continue putting the puck in the net.
That's Alex Art Ross Ovechkin possibly this year.
Yes, it's possible, absolutely. But it's just continuing with what they got going on right now. The road games are so important, and these are teams that. They won't see much of this season, and so you don't usually have a whole lot of film on them too. So just being able to figure it out quick, and and that's usually going to lead to hopefully some road success and a fun trip for the guys, and staying focused and staying out of the sun a little bit while still focusing on hockey.
And TJ Oshie, he's been week to week after taking the puck off his foot. How badly do you think he wants to play in this Seattle game?
I think he's going to do anything that he has to do to play in that game. That's my guess right there. Is he's gonna be with the guys on the road, get on the ice, and probably, even if he could play before that, I would assume that maybe that would be the game that he would come back for. But that's just like, that's what I thought he was going to get picked up by them originally. When we were talking about the expansion draft possibilities, that would be Osh. And then it was nice, obviously, that he got to stick around here. But that's a place where I think you'll have a pretty big group of fans that'll be there to cheer him on. Even if they're Seattle Kraken fans, they'll probably be TJ Oshie fans too. Yeah,
for all the questions we've asked TJ Oshie about the Seattle Kraken, I'm sure with all the family he's going to play. If he can play, I think he's going to play.
I agree with you completely. I'd put money on it if I was a betting man.
Thanks everybody for listening on All's Caps. Next episode, we're talking to Ben Guerrero, former Capitals PR guy, now with the Seattle Kraken. A little Starbucks conversation, a little bit of his old days with the Capitals, and of course we asked him Karl's stupid questions. We will talk to you next time.